Hey
Hey
everyone,
guys, hey, how you doing?
what is up? Lovely Design Cuts community.
Yeah, nice to
How
be
is
back.
everyone? We're joined by the wonderful Anna Aspnes today. How are you, Anna?
Hey Anna.
I'm excellent, staying warm in cold Colorado.
It looks
Excellent.
very cozy there.
Yeah, it does look cozy.
It is. There's a lot of
Nice.
snow here right now. We had to dig ourselves out this morning
Oh
to
wow,
get
wow,
things moving.
snowman.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you joining us
Yeah,
on this
we really do.
cozy, cold day to share some wonderful scrapbooking techniques.
Yes,
Of
very
course.
excited to see this one. Actually, really excited.
It should be a really good session, everyone. Anna, do you mind sharing what are you going to be teaching today?
I'm going to be basically sharing the new bundle that we have put together. We've collaborated on it. It's the Artplay Anaphora collection, and I'm going to put together a photo project that shows you all different ways to use the products included in that collection.
Amazing, brilliant.
Awesome. So anyone who's interested in digital scrapbooking, texture work, bit of photo manipulation, Photoshop
Montage,
techniques,
nice.
it's all going to be in this live session. Anna's a wonderful teacher, so it's going to be really value packed. So we hope some people can follow along. Otherwise, take as many notes and soak it all up. But it should be great.
And it'll be in the Learn section afterwards, so you'll be able to track it down.
Yep, there's lots of information. So a lot of quick ways to do fast and dirty approaches in Photoshop to speed up your process. So I'm excited to share these with you.
Awesome.
I can see as well, we've got the usual international crowd, and Hilston says Happy Valentine's Day from Australia, because obviously
thanks.
they're so far ahead.
Where's the flowers? Where's the flowers?
Yeah, we've got Sweden,
England.
Australia, everywhere.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Like I say, it should be a real fun session. Anna, shall we jump right in? Because I know there's tons to share.
Yeah, so much to look at.
So we're just going to share the screen and jump into Photoshop.
Yep.
There we go.
So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so this is the project that we're going to recreate, and I'm actually just going to minimize this project as I work, just because it's virtually impossible to create the same result exactly twice. So sometimes it's helpful for me to go back and look at some of these different layers. And it's also helpful too to demonstrate the different comparisons and the different ways that you can go.
For sure.
So I'm going to show you the collection itself. So aside from the layout, these are all the different folders that you'll receive with the Artplay Anaphora collection. So we've got the Artplay Palette Anaphora, which looks like this. We have the Artsy template, which looks like this. We have the Hipster Plume, the multi-layered photo blends. This is an old product. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So we have the multi-layered photo blends, which comes in 2 different folders, and that's this product here. And then we have the repeat word art, which is this one, and then some take flight brushes.
Cool.
So these all coordinate, and we'll be using every single product, not all of the elements, but we'll be using something from each of these products in our layout design.
Awesome.
So
flight elements, they're great.
Yeah, I'm going to head back into Photoshop, and if it's okay, I'm going to get started with creating the project.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layout. It's always advisable to do this because then you're not accidentally altering your prized products. You want to keep those originals as much as possible. So I'm going to go to File, New. And in digital scrapbooking and photo artistry, we often work with a 12 by 12 inch canvas at 300 DPI. So I recommend that you enter the 300 resolution. So pixels per inch is what you want to choose here. And then you go in and you select 12 by 12 in the width and height and have that set to inches, and then click OK. And this is going to create a new canvas onto which you can create your design. And then you want to go and navigate to your paperies folder. So these are digital artistry backgrounds. And I'm going to go ahead and just make these a little larger so you can see them. And typically you'll get 4 of these artsy paper backgrounds created at 12 by 12, 300 pixels per inch. And then you also get these solid papers, which you can then use with the second folder, of the ArtPlay palette, these transfers and overlays. So the idea is to place these PNG files with transparent backgrounds, which have already been pre-blended and provided to you. You're going to drag and drop these to create your own custom artsy papers. So I'm going to show you both approaches into creating with these two different types of elements. So first of all, I want to go to my papery folder, and I'm actually going to select two different papers. So I'm going to select this one and this one just because they have sort of similar designs. And I'm going to literally drag them onto my new layout design. And they're going to place, and I'm going to click the check mark at the top of my screen to activate those. And somehow I've managed to select all of them, but that's okay. It's always nice to have a bit of variety and bring in a variety of different backgrounds so you can see which are going to work best for you. And then I am going to go and navigate to my artsy template. Now, this design is really intended for you to create an entire layout. So when you go ahead and open this PSD file into your workspace, you're going to see in your layers panel all the different elements that make up this template. And the idea is to recolor these layers. You can use your digital art supplies from your ArtPlay palette collections to clip to these different layers. You can obviously rotate, resize, and just modify each of these layers individually to create your layout design. The other thing that I like to do with these templates is to use pieces of them to build my other layouts. And what this does is it gives you a bit more mileage out of your artsy template. So instead of just being able to use it once to create a layout design, you can use pieces to create other layouts too. So I'm going to select some different layers. In this case, I'm going to select this collection of frames here. So I am holding down the shift key and clicking on the first layer and then clicking on the last layer to select all of those layers in the layers panel. I'm going to make sure my auto select option is unchecked. And then I'm going to, with the move tool, drag these onto my layout design. And they fit quite nicely here. And I'm going to go with this quad set because I want to show you how to clip multiple photos to these layers and also clip one photo to extend all of these frames. But if I wanted to, I could modify this and perhaps move some of these frames. So maybe I just want to use two of these frames, for example. So that gives you an idea of how you can kind of modify these configurations to make them work for your preference and for your photos. So I also like to use the text boxes as well in these templates. So I'm going to select one of those. I'm going to drag it over. And you can resize a text box by selecting the type tool from the tools panel, clicking in that text box, and then dragging the edges in or down or up to change the orientation of that text box to make it fit into the area of your template where you want your journaling to go. And for memory keepers, this is typically the details that support the photos and tell the story of the page.
And Anna, something that bugged me for years when I was starting out, I would try and do what you just did, resizing the text box, and it would squash the text.
Yeah.
So do you mind explaining how to avoid that?
Yeah, if you don't actually click on the text, then you will get that squashed effect. So when you have that text box in place, you physically want to select that text box and it highlights it. And then you want to click on these small kind of white squares. And this will allow you to change the size and the orientation of the text box. And you can see you can do it from the corners as well.
Cool.
So the text box has changed depending on the version, but typically if you click into that text box, then you're going to be able to resize by moving those edges inwards and outwards.
Amazing.
And then you can...
Sorry, go on, Anna. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Then
I was just going to say it's really funny with recreating. I suppose back in the day, we used to recreate all this stuff in low res before making it in high res because the computers weren't powerful enough, and it never looked as good in high res as it did in the low res.
Oh, that's funny.
Like, no.
Yeah, resolution is super important for this type of artistry because the intent at the end is to print these pages. So you want to make sure that you're working in this 300 pixels per inch, or DPI is what they call it at the print shops. And this ensures that you end up with nice, clear, crisp images as opposed to fuzzy, pixelated layout designs.
Absolutely.
So that's where the DPI, or the pixels per inch, come in. They're sort of interchangeable. And then you can duplicate layers simply by selecting that layer in the layers panel and then dragging it down to the new layers icon in Photoshop. Now, if you're working in Elements, these tools down at the bottom of your layers panel are located at the top of your layers panel. So it's important to know here that if you're an Elements user, then all of these techniques can be recreated in your version of Photoshop. So you can see that I've duplicated that text box. Now, if I go ahead and click, now can you see what Tom was just talking about? I didn't actually click on that text. And so now it's allowing me to resize the text, but in a different way. The actual characters are increasing in size. So I'm going to cancel that, select the type tool from the tools panel, click intentionally on that text box, and now I'm able to resize that text. And then if you notice these small options at the top of your screen in Photoshop Elements, that will be at the bottom of your screen, you can change the alignment of that text in the text box. So currently we have it right aligned. We can left align that text. So now you can see all of that text shift to the left-hand side of that text box. You can also center align it. So the idea here is I'm trying to build a visually pleasing arrangement for the text that I want to include in my layout design. So now you can see that we're building up this nice layout fairly simply by using one of these artsy papers and some of the pieces of the template. I'm going to go ahead and just grab a couple more of these layers because these are super helpful when you are creating a design. So I'm going to select a bunch of these different layers and I'm just going to drag them over. And you can see that they have been deposited at the top of my layers panel. So I'm going to drag them down so that they sit directly above that paper design. And then here I can start maybe turning off the visibility of some of these layers to perhaps remove the ones that I don't want. So we have this one. So maybe I don't want that one. We'll keep this one. This one's pretty cool. So notice this one sort of lines up with the design on my background, and I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard to nudge that into position. And then we have this one here as well. So you can move these around to make them fit. And you can see that these are exactly the same. So it's kind of fun to just nudge those keys along and get them to fit like that. And then if you want to select a layer on the template and you can't find it in the layers panel, you can, with the move tool selected, you can select this auto select option, or you can press the control or command key on your keyboard, and that will, you see how I can toggle that on and off. And you can actually click on areas of your template. So I'm going to move this over here. This is kind of a texture layer, which is kind of fun. And then we also have this art stroke layer. So you can notice how two different ways of selecting those designs and moving them over.
Nice.
So why am I adding layers that already exist in this paper? Well, it could be that I might want to change my paper design. So I might want to go with this one, for example. So therefore, it adds a bit more visual interest. And also, too, it then provides me the option of being able to incorporate my photos into my page design using these fun kind of transfer elements. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to locate my photo, my focal photo. And this was a trip that I took a couple of years ago with my daughter in Edinburgh. We went to an art museum, and so I wanted to create a page about it. So this is a view of Edinburgh out the window. Doesn't look too much to look at right now, but we can jazz it up in Photoshop using the products and the Photoshop power, or the techniques in Photoshop. So I've opened this into my workspace, and we're just going to close this guy out. And then I want to navigate and find the layer to which I want to clip this photo. So this is the one I think I'm going to go with here. And I'm going to drag that photo across. And I have the option here to resize that image. I'll close out the original to keep my screen nice and clear. With the Move tool selected, if I hover over the corner point, you see I get this double-ended arrow. And if I click on that, this allows me then to resize that photo if I want to. So I'm going to just resize it a little bit. Click on the check mark to accept that transformation. And then I'm going to go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask. And now you can see that that photo conforms to that underlying layer. And it might be that we want to maybe resize that a little bit more. Now we can go ahead and we can duplicate that layer by dragging it down to the new layer icon, and then potentially dragging it over another one of those artsy template layers that we added to our layout design. So now I'm going to go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask, and I'm going to apply that. So that now extends the image. We can't see it very well, but that's okay because we have a couple of different options here. We can select both the layers in the clipping set, and we can drag those down to the new layer icon. And you can see that that hasn't really done much for us in terms of the design. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And I'm going to repeat that same action with the other one and drag it down. So now you can see how that has increased the visibility of that photo. The other thing that we can do here is we can start applying different blending modes. So if I select the mask layer, so that's our artsy template layer, and then go up to the top of our layers panel and click on the normal tab with this activates a menu with all the different blending modes that we have available to us. And notice what happens as I start hovering over those different blending modes. We get a preview of what each of those blending modes might look like. So overlay looks pretty good, and I really liked the color burn. So maybe we go with that. We can also duplicate that layer again and maybe apply a different blending mode, like screen. We can also duplicate the photo that's attached to each of the masks. So you can see I've got 3 different layers now attached to that same artsy template layer. And we can go in and we can change the blending mode of those different layers. And just depending on what we have available to us, we need to send this back to normal. But you can see how that affects. So you have all these different ways of using blending modes to accentuate your photos. So that's one way you can do it. I'm now going to go ahead and just group these layers together. I just want to go to Layer, and then
I had a comment from someone saying we're going quite quickly at the minute.
Yeah, did you want me to slow down a bit?
Possibly just a touch.
Yeah, no worries.
Maybe. It's stunning watching it coming together, though. Really, I mean, wow, it looks great.
So, and then you can see I might need to nudge it just a little bit because we've got this area here. So this is one way that I can incorporate a photo, a blended photo, into my design. I've grouped those layers together because I want to show you a different approach. So I'm going to turn off the visibility, and we're going to head back to where we were previously. And now we're going to reintroduce that photo in a different way. So I'm going to go and navigate to my multi-layered photo blends. You can see you get 5 in the set here, and they are each delivered in PNG format and also in PSD format. Now, the PSD format's kind of cool because it retains its layered shape. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag one of these into my workspace so you can see what it looks like. You want to drag it into the background, not directly onto the canvas, because you want to retain all of these really cool layers. So we have the clipping mask layer, and then we have all of these other layers that support the clipping mask layer. And this allows you to modify those with brushes. You can recolor them, you can rotate them, you can resize them, or you can turn off those layers in their entirety. So you want to make sure that you have your background paper layer selected. You're going to select all of those layers in the layers panel by holding down the shift button on your keyboard and selecting all of those layers. And then with the move tool selected, I'm going to just drag these onto my workspace. And you can see how these multi-layered photo blends are designed to coordinate with the designs of the artsy paper layers. Go ahead and close this out. And then this works in the same way as we worked with the artsy template layers. So if I go ahead and select the primary mask layer in this design, and then go back to my photos, I'm going to drag this one in, and this time I'm going to drag it directly onto my canvas. And because I have that mask layer selected, it's going to deposit that photo directly above that mask layer. I can accept the transformation and let that sit directly over the mask, and then go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask. And then from here, we can resize that image. We can rotate that image, maybe like that. And then this is just another way, and you can see that we have a bit more visibility of the photo. So if you want to show more detail of your image, then this is another great way to add a blended photo into your layout design. And then again, you have the option of duplicating that photo layer. You can lighten it with a screen blending mode. You could duplicate it again, and you could add a soft light blending mode. You could then go ahead and apply maybe a blending mode underneath there, depending on what looks best. I think I found that difference looked kind of cool. I kind of like the look of that one.
I'm guessing that you work in a similar way that I do when I do this kind of stuff, in that there's no set blend modes that you need to use. You just use your eye and almost go through all of them and be like, which one looks nicest? And that's it.
Yeah, the challenge with blending modes is that what will look best is going to change with every single photo you work with, because you're always going to be using a different background. And blending modes work based on the colors and the lightness and the darkness of, or the light and the dark within your images. So every time you bring a photo and an artsy design together, they're going to interact differently based on those blending modes. So it's one of the things that keeps me most interested in the sport, because you're always going to get a different result every single time. So it's
like infinite variation.
Yeah. I mean, after a certain period of time, you start to get a feel of, you know, how it might behave, but you never really know until you actually apply it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, it's definitely quite therapeutic though, just going through each one and being like, oh, that's my favorite.
It's super fun. Like you can see the ones at the top here generally darken, and then the next lot generally lighten. And then you have these overlay ones. This one's kind of cool, this overlay. And then so now you've got this clipping mask, but then you've got these other layers beneath. So you have the choice here. So I usually turn them all off and then bring them back. And so this one, for example, is currently black, but we could go to Edit, Fill, go to our color picker from the contents menu, maybe sample this blue here that's in our layout design, click OK. You want to make sure you have this preserve transparency box checked. If you don't have it checked and you click OK, it's going to flood your entire design with the color that you've chosen. So if I now go back and go to Edit, just lost it, Fill, preserve that transparency box, that now you can see it just recolors that one element. And then you can, of course, go and you can apply a blending mode to that too, if you want to. So maybe we'll apply.
Anna, what's the most layers you've ever had?
I was just wondering. I should imagine they could scroll pretty much forever by the time you finish. It's awesome.
Hundreds.
I would like to, in the good old days, when I was actually not creating product, I used to have tons and tons of layers. But ever since I started creating these products, the whole point is to make this process as easy as possible for you. So it's a matter of a drag and drop approach where you have this artsy paper design and then you drag all these pieces on there, and then you use the very simple tools in Photoshop to just manipulate all of those layers. And as we go through, you're going to start seeing, you know, I'm rotating, I'm resizing, I'm recoloring, and I'm not really doing anything too fancy in order to create these really cool effects.
Sure. And it's really quite a dynamic end result as well. It looks stunning.
Yeah, so you bring in the next layer and maybe you want to adjust the opacity of that and leave it the same color. Maybe you want to rotate it. Maybe you want to resize it.
Very organic, isn't it?
Yeah, and even when I used to do fairly advanced photo manipulation, you're right, it's the most basic tools
that you use again and again and again.
It's blend modes, it's masking, and it's resizing and rotating, and that's basically it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I just keep bringing in these layers. I'll perhaps recolor this one. We'll make this one lighter to better showcase our photo. Make sure you have that preserve transparency box checked. And then if you recolor something that's, maybe too light or is not the right color, it's no big drama, because you can just go up to image adjustments, hue and saturation, and you can change the lightness of that color. You can change the hue of that color. You can see how very subtly you can change that. And then you can change the saturation of that color too. That's how bright or how saturated it is. So it's super flexible in what you can do. So that's how I blend my photos, using two different ways. You can use the elements or the layers from your artsy template, or you can use the layers from the multi-layered photo blends.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And I find myself using the more photographic elements of Photoshop, the basic stuff like hue and saturation, the levels, just so much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the curves. If you're working in Photoshop, curves is a really great tool too.
Yeah.
I still remember the introduction of adjustment layers and what a lifesaver that was. Everything became so non-destructive.
I won't say that I remember Photoshop pre-layers, because
pre-layers. I don't say that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't think I was quite there yet. I don't remember Photoshop without layers.
You pretty much carbon date me now, so that's okay.
Okay, so I'm going to move on now, and I'm going to show you how to add photos to the frame layers. So I want to select the last layer of the frames in our layer stack in our layers panel. And then I'm going to go and select my 4 different photos. So I've got 4 pre-selected just to help us out here. And I'm going to drag them directly onto our layout design. And you can see they're all going to place as I click the check mark.
Is this your daughter again?
Yes, this is my daughter.
Does she know that she's internet famous right now with hundreds of people on?
What I really love is the way you've got like a really consistent color palette, even running through the photos. Very subtly, kind of.
It is funny, isn't it? Well, that's the trick, is to select an art play palette that's going to coordinate with the color of your photos.
It's really nice. It's a nice palette.
Yeah. So I have my 4 photos. I'm going to select them all again, holding down the Shift key and selecting all of those layers. And I'm going to resize them all together using that same resizing tool of using the Move tool, clicking on the corner point, and then just dragging them all in. And you can see now how I'm able to resize them all at the same time. And then I'm going to just place them over the mask. So each one of them, we're going to drag each one down above the mask layer of the frame. You probably want to turn off your auto select for this, because it can get a bit tricky in moving layers. So you've got to find the right one, but you're essentially just going to place them over the frame. So notice how they slightly overlap the frame. That's okay, because when you go to layer, create clipping mask, they're just going to clip down to the frame layer. And then you're going to do the same thing with this one, for example. Let's go ahead.
I'm now in desperate need of a coffee.
I know, that looks good.
Yeah, it does look really good.
I know, it does look good, doesn't it? It was good. My daughter's a huge coffee person, so we always have to go and, visit all the coffee shops.
Mine's a bit young, but I think she'll get there. She'll get there. At the moment, she's stuck on the cake part of the equation.
So you can see there's a lot of kind of repetition here in order to get these to fit. So here we go. We've got them all in these frames. Nice. So it's just an easy way to support your focal design by adding in these extra layers. Now, if you wanted to do something super fancy, you could go ahead and you could select one of these photos, drag it in. I'm going to drag it onto my layout design, and I'm going to place it at the top of the frame stack. And we want to have it so that it covers all of those frames. That's this particular photo here.
I think I know what you're going to do.
Yeah, so what we're going to do here is we're going to expand one photo across all 4 frames. So it produces quite a cool effect. So to do this, you're going to go ahead and drag your photo down to the first mask layer and go to layer, create clipping mask. And we want to make sure that, you know, the focal area is in this area of the photo, but you want to also make sure that your photo covers all the other frames as well. So this is pretty good. We've got a face in the shot, so I'm happy to move on. You're then going to duplicate this layer, and you're going to drag this layer up to the next mask layer, and then you're going to go to layer, create clipping mask. And then you're going to repeat that, duplicate again, drag it up to the next frame layer, and go to layer, create clipping mask.
Someone's there's a whole conversation going on about the shift resize issue in Photoshop, and it's just making me giggle currently because
I keep doing
my finger twitches. Right, I go for it. It's like I can't help myself.
Well, the shift has been interesting because I can't remember if it was the last release or the one before, but they totally did a switcheroo on it. So we used to have to hold down the shift button in order to resize.
Thing is, it makes more sense this way.
It does, but I can't help myself. I just
it's
like, and then of course it's not the same in Illustrator, I think, currently, and I'm like,
Well, yeah, and if you work in Photoshop Elements and you select the Move tool, there's actually a little box that you have to check, which says basically constrain proportions. And so that allows you to be able to resize your photos proportionately. And you also always want to resize from the corner. You don't want to resize from the top. Oh, I guess it does work now. It used to be that I see. I never do that because there's no reason for me to. But it used to be that you would squish your photo.
It, wouldn't it? Yeah,
but you have to hold shift to squish now.
Yeah.
Jeannie's saying there should have been some kind of national news notification. There really should have been tonight in the news.
Yeah, breaking news.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's how you do that fun little technique. So now we're going to add some brushes.
Really cool.
So we have a couple of different options with this collection for brushes. There's an entire brushes set that comes with the ArtPlay collection. So you can go ahead and you can select any of these brushes. So I'm just going to randomly select a couple of them, drag them into my workspace, and then drag them onto my layout design. And I'm adding them on top of my layer stack. But you always have the option, of course, to select those layers and move them up or down your layers to reorganize those layers. You know, if you think back into the days of overhead projectors where you used to have the transparencies and lay them on top of one another, this is a very similar way of looking at this process. And then you're just moving these around. And of course, this is where you have to be careful of picking up the wrong, the wrong elements. So this is where it's a good idea not to have your auto select option checked so that you are actually grabbing the element that you want to grab and not one of the layers that's on top of the layer stack. So you can start kind of maybe adding these in like this. And it might be that you don't need all of these. You know, there's a bit of duplication here. So maybe we can go ahead and you can turn them off. You can go ahead and you can rotate them. You can recolor them. We're going through the same thing. You can add different blending modes to them. So lots of different options for adding those different brushes. And these ArtPlay brushes really just add some visual interest. They add some line. They add some texture just to increase the visual complexity of your pages. And
they can help frame a bit as well if you wish.
Yeah, exactly. And then also included is this Take Flight brush set. So you've got a variety of all these different cool bird elements.
They're really pretty, really nice.
Yeah, so these come in ABR and PNG format. So the ABR files, there's 2 of them, and these are to support earlier versions of Photoshop and Photoshop Elements before version 15, because in versions after that, they allowed much larger brushes than 2,500 pixels. So I include both those ABR files. I'm not going to demonstrate how to use these with the paintbrush tool, but if you're interested, there's a free class on my website, which will show you how to load and use these brushes with the paintbrush tool. You can actually just use these elements by dragging them onto your canvas directly, just as you would any of the other layers. So this is where I'm going to maybe just add a few birds into the mix and a bit of creative license. So you can just add those into place. So you just drag and drop them. Now, the beauty of using the paintbrush tool, of course, is that when you load the brushes, you can decide ahead before you add them to your design what color and what size you want to add them. If you're using the PNG, you kind of reverse that process. So you add the element, and then you go to edit and you go to fill. Now, because it's added as a smart object here, I have to go to layer and I have to rasterize it before I can go to edit, fill, and then I can change the color of it. So I'll often go with gray, a 50% gray, and then I'll go and I'll apply a different blending mode. So you can see I can add it in white. That's kind of fun here with this linear dodge blending mode. Otherwise, it's not really dark enough. So maybe we just stick with difference like that.
Lovely detailing.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're just kind of building up the layers. And as you add more layers, then it gets more complex. You also get more layers in your layers panel, but you shouldn't have so many that it's kind of out of control. So, and then as scrapbookers, we also like to add words to our layout designs, as I've already mentioned with this text box here. So with this collection comes a variety of different titles that are designed to work together to build your own title clusters. So for example, I could select one word art and then maybe select one of these wooden words and then select one of these transfers. So I've got 3 different elements selected. I'm holding down the Control or the Command key to be able to specify which of these I want to select. And then I'm going to drag them into my workspace and drag it over like this. And these are deposited, of course, lower down my layers panel because that's where we were working with the brushes. So I want to select those and then drag them up to the top of my layers panel. And then this now allows us to move these around. So again, I'm just dragging and dropping these elements and moving them. I can resize them, I can rotate them, I can change the blending mode, I can change the color. And then you're kind of moving them together. It's a concept, a design concept called unity. So when elements are placed close together, then it shows relationship between those elements. So we could place the title here if we wanted to. We could also perhaps place the title over here if we wanted to, or we could split the title up and place it kind of in different areas. So this is a little large to fit in this space. So maybe we go ahead and delete this. We can add this here and maybe we'll go with a smaller title.
I like the way you're kind of leaving that negative space at the bottom just to keep that balance in the design.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just totally leaving that blank, which is great.
Yeah, it's always a good idea to have areas that are kind of busy with visual design. And then I like to have at least 20 to 30% of the page that's kind of clear, because then it allows the eye to kind of move from the various areas of interest. And then these white space areas up at the top and the bottom here just allow the eye to rest as it moves around the design.
Sure.
I can see a lot of people making their own variant of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And framing it in their home. And
you can put them in canvas.
Homage to your family.
Yeah, a lot of people put them on canvases. I've actually seen people put them on pillows. You can put them on coffee mugs. I mean, anywhere now.
You see it being used in magazine advertising, all kinds of applications for it. Actually, it's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And if you wanted to add a drop shadow layer style to this woodword, you'd go to layer style, drop shadow. And then I like to have an angle of about 120. I usually set my blending mode to linear burn. About 35 is good. Now, can you see how it has a bit more realism now to it? You can change the distance of it if you want to. You can change the size and then click OK. So you could even split these up if you wanted to and have this over here and then have this here.
Yeah. I mean, if you change the size of it, you could use it for greetings cards. You could use it for, there's absolutely loads of applications for this.
Yeah, yeah. And as you were saying earlier, if you wanted to just jazz up your photos using that levels, you could go to image adjustment levels and you can make those photos a little bit more kind of eye-catching by increasing the highlights and the shadows. So you're moving this dark gray bar to the right and the
it's a tool I use so heavily.
Yeah, and then in Photoshop, this isn't available in Photoshop Elements, but you can also use the curves where you just drag this up slightly to increase the highlights, drag this down slightly to increase the levels. And it's just, I find it a little bit faster, the curves, but it's really just purely preference.
More control.
Yeah, but notice how you're able to kind of just jazz up those photos. The reason I thought about that was because I want my title here to pop a little bit. So I'm using these interchangeably. I'm now using levels. You can even change the midtones.
Yeah.
And lighten up that background. So that allows our cool little title here to pop over the photo.
Nice.
Okay, so that's adding word art, fairly simple there. You can also add blending modes. You can get super fancy here and start adding different blending modes to those too. I've even seen people add blending modes to these word titles. So you can get some kind of neat effects there.
Like a knockout effect?
Yeah. And then we move on to the embellishment. So this is always the most exciting part for memory keepers because they get to add all the fun stuff. So the last element, or the last one of the folders, I guess it's not the last because we're going to revisit the transfers and overlays, but we have all these dimensional embellishments that you can bring into your workspace. And you'll notice some of them are in folders. These ones in folders are essentially the elements that have cast shadows already applied. Now, I include the PNG file with the drop shadow layer for those people who are working in programs that are not Photoshop or Elements, and they just want the drag and drop approach. I include those PNG files separately so that you can layer them up yourself. So if you're working
everything.
You really have, haven't you? To change the distance of that shadow. Really cool.
Well, if you're working
intensity as well.
Pro, then you can then layer it up and add the blending modes in PaintShop Pro. And then I also have the way I like to work, because I'm using Photoshop, is the element where it's pre-set up for you. So you can see that we have the element like this, and you just drag and drop it onto your page. And the shadow's already done for you. It's got a nice cast shadow. You could go in and you could change the color of that shadow. So maybe if you wanted it to have a slight brown tone as opposed to just gray, or a blue tone, you could do that. You can change the blending mode by going down to linear burn. I like linear burn. But you could also do color burn as well if it wasn't black. And then you can change the fill. So if you have this element over a darker background, you can see that you can see it more when it's over a darker background. If you increase the fill, you can also change the opacity. So lots of different ways you can manipulate that. If you select both those layers, you can resize that element, you can rotate that element. And then you just kind of go back and see what else there is. I don't like to add too many elements to my pages. Typically, I like to have maybe one or two. I like the dimension that it provides, but I don't like to go overboard because I want the focus to be on my photos. And I find when you start adding too many elements or embellishments, then you end up taking the focus off the photos.
Sure.
So I'm just adding a drop shadow to that. Notice how that kind of just makes that a little bit more striking. And so that would be our completed layout design. Of course, we're missing her head here. Here we go. So this would be the completed layout design. But and then at this point, maybe you want to go and play. So remember at the beginning here, we added in some extra papers. So if I go ahead and switch off that paper design, you can now see what that would look like with this different background. The other thing that we can do is we can turn off this layer, or we can maybe keep that layer for now, but we can go back to our papers. And if you remember at the beginning, I said you can actually create your own paper designs. So you could bring in a paper design into your layout. So I'm going to add it just above. Where is it deposited? So it's gone kind of in the middle there. So I'm going to have to drag it back down to the base of my layout design. So it's just above that background layer. And now we can potentially build a design around our photos. So this is where we would now go to the last folder. This is actually the last folder of our art play palette. And we could go and select some of these transfers and overlays. So for example, I might want to bring in, you just bring in a random selection. I usually bring in at least 4 to begin with. Let's go with, maybe go with these ones, maybe this one as well. And then drag those into your workspace, drag them over that solid paper design. We're just going to place them all here. And I kind of consider this a bit like coloring in, because what we're going to do is we're going to use these transfers to fill in the white space behind our photos. And we might not need all of these. Again, you have to be a bit careful here because you don't want to end up moving other layers. So maybe you want to rotate this one. So notice I'm using those same actions. Might want to move your layers up the layers panel, change the order of them to change how they look. So notice how that's kind of lightened it because it's not being affected by one of the blending modes that's further up the panel design.
I love the way all the different blending modes, you never really quite know how it's going to react, do you, as you change the layer order and move them around? It's real adventure.
And I was always that child who would want to start something and got bored of it very quickly. And I've been using Photoshop now for 18 years and I never get bored. And I think it's because of this, you just never know what it's going to look like.
Sure.
Is your daughter creative like you, Anna?
She is, but she won't touch anything that I like to do because of course I do it. I think she's interested in photography. She likes photography. And I think she could get into the graphic arts if I didn't do it. I think when she gets a bit older, she probably will. So notice how I've placed this transfer here. And I like how it looks here, but we've got this hard edge here. So this is where you could actually modify the transfer if you wanted to. You could select that eraser tool and then go up and select one of your soft round brushes. You're going to have to, again,
oh no. Can everyone see and hear us? Let us know.
Anna's paused there for a second.
Yeah, we might have a paused Anna, but let us know in the comments if that is on our side or Anna's side. Sorry, these things can happen. So, no, it's on Anna's side. Cool. Okay.
We'll try and reconnect to Anna.
Maybe it's that Colorado snow.
It must be. It must be
in at this point.
But I think it's safe to say it's pretty awesome stuff on here. It looks absolutely stunning, and what you can do with this product is just absolutely amazing.
I'll tell you what, we're going to re-invite Anna.
Let's do it.
Back on screen. Thanks for bearing with us, guys. We've had such a good run of no technical issues as well.
Really like this, have we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, it's not actually closing the video either. So there we go.
There we go.
It's taking its time.
Just waiting for Anna to come back.
Jamie says, "Awesome" is an understatement.
We
were so immersed in that as well. I know.
I was just like, "Oh, kid in a candy shop."
Yeah, don't worry if you can just hear us, not Anna. I think Anna is having some internet issues.
Yeah, we'll just wait for Anna to come back online.
Perfect. Let's re-invite her then. We've lost Anna. Yeah, it is beautiful though. We're so glad that everyone's enjoying it. Let's see if that works. We've just re-invited Anna. In the meantime, we can spin the wheel.
We can. What are we going to have? What is it still set to? Oh no, it's set to people rather than different types of takeaway, like it sometimes is in the office.
Thanks for bearing with us, everyone. So what we can do, we can give it maybe 30 seconds, and if Anna's internet is unfortunately down, thankfully we got the absolute bulk of the tutorial. And we're very happy to show off the wonderful packs that Anna demonstrated today if she isn't able to rejoin us.
Absolutely.
We'll just wait for 10 more seconds. So while we're waiting for Anna to hopefully rejoin, do let us know, what do you think so far of the lesson? Have you got any favorite parts or aspects that you're looking forward to trying? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, because as someone myself who used to do a lot of photo montage work, this just seems like such a fantastic way to do it, and to have a play with Photoshop in such a dynamic way.
Yeah, it's
but without
really fun.
Having to create a lot of those elements yourself.
Yeah, and I think, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I bet you're surprised at how commercial
I am, because I'm well, I don't like to admit it, but quite a commercial designer, having worked in the sort of commercial realm for a good sort of 20 years or so. And actually, you could use this for a lot of commercial projects. You could use it in advertising. You can use book covers, magazine covers. You could use it on cards, editorial. Yeah, it's very, very commercial indeed, that look. And beautiful as well.
So I think, unfortunately, Anna's not able to rejoin us unless a internet miracle happens. But
everybody keep your fingers crossed.
We do have a shiny green button right below this live stream, and you can check out all of the packs demonstrated in today's lesson from Anna. In fact, we've actually bundled them up. So this is a kind of starter kit to get into this type of work and explore these packs. It's 50% off. And we've teamed up with Anna to provide this just for the Design Cuts community. So really excited to share it. Do check it out, and the team can link it up as well in the live chat. But as we say, do click that shiny green button below this live stream, and you can grab all 5 packs that were demonstrated. So you've got all of the papers and the art play resources and the embellishments and the birds, and all of these gorgeous elements are yours for, I think it's about $14, which is
it's not an
ridiculously
really
affordable.
Yeah, it really isn't very much.
And 50% off the regular price. As Andy says, it's a fantastic
deal.
Hello,
Anna.
We got Anna.
Hey, I'm back. I'm sorry.
No worries. That's great. Good timing. We're digging up your pack massively because it's so awesome.
So anyway, I can finish up if you want.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I was going to feel sad if we wouldn't get to say goodbye.
No, I'm back.
Okay.
Let's go ahead. It did actually recover. So
we've been having internet issues too all week, so don't stress. Yeah. It's all good.
You know what? It just happens. I've been doing this for long enough now to know computers. They're a little bit of when you work with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to show you the last piece we had. Literally, this was the last thing I wanted to show you guys.
It's so close. Cool.
So remember this transfer? It didn't actually save, I don't think, the background there, but remember this transfer, and I liked it.
You mind resharing? Yeah, we can't see Photoshop anymore.
Go ahead, share. Okay, hang on a sec.
Thanks. Maureen's saying you went skiing quickly. Is that true?
Yeah.
For a quick ski?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know my people are just the best people in the world. They're so understanding when I have these little kind of.
Oh yeah, they've been great, and same with our community. They're a very nice bunch.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay.
Anna.
So this is the transfer, and I wanted to place it behind that photo. It's not actually behind the photo right now, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. I just wanted to show you. So if I wanted to place this transfer here, you can see I've got this hard edge. So what I would do is I would select the eraser tool from the tools panel and then select a Photoshop default brush. See, I blame the brush. And because it's a smart object, you're going to have to again go back and rasterize that smart object. And then maybe we want to increase the size of this brush. And you could just kind of just blow out the edge like that.
Nice.
So that you're able to still use that element in your design in the way that you want to. And you know what would be fun here, because I'm not going to drag it below the photo. You could use it as an overlay over the photo. So I could then go and maybe apply overlay or soft light, and then that's going to impart some of that color. I love how some of the gold is added over the top of the image.
Nice.
So, and maybe we want to blow out a bit more of it. There we go, like that.
Beautiful.
It is.
Yeah. So that pretty much completes the presentation. I mean, we've learned how to create a new layout. We've learned how to create a design using multiple different artsy paper designs. We've learned how to use the clipping mask function to blend our photos in 2 different ways, using the artsy layer template layers and the photo blends mask layers. We've also added photos to frames in multiple ways. So we know now how to add multiple photos to multiple frames and a single photo to multiple frames. We've added brushes from 2 different sources to our layout design to add visual interest, increase texture, and add line. And then we've also added words to our page to provide context, and then dimensional elements, which lead the eye, add color, support the theme of our page designs. And then I also showed you at the end how you can build your own custom artsy paper around a layout design.
God, so, yeah. Is that everything, Anna?
Yeah, is that all? That's all we managed to do.
That was so much packed into an hour session.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I even showed you what it looks like to have a computer crash.
Yeah, and came back from it as well. No worries.
Consummate professional. Yeah. Anna, we were explaining what this bundle is.
Yeah.
Would you mind being an absolute star and resharing your screen and just showing that bundle page on the screen so people get that visual? As to be honest, I'd love you to describe it because you'll do a better job than I can.
I did have it open. I need to go back and
it's the green button. So just below the live stream.
Oh, okay, got it.
Cool.
Perfect. Yeah, so here's the bundle. So everything that we've used here. So you've got the Art Play palette Anaphora. I always tend to give my Art Play palette collections unusual names. I'm a bit of a word fan as well as being an artist and a designer. So I like to combine that love for language with my artistry. So this is Art Play Anaphora, and it comes with 9 artsy and solid background papers. It comes with 16 brushes, 12 transfers and overlays, and I believe it's 14 elements. There's usually 14 or 15 elements, dimensional elements with these collections. And then your artsy layered template, which coordinates, and this allows you to create a custom layout design, but you can also use those pieces independently to build up your own designs. So therefore you get more mileage out of these different product sets. And then you can see in the preview here of the repeat word art mix, it's pretty cool. Shows you the different ways you can combine the different words to create different titles. And then you've got the Take Flight brush set, which is a variety of different bird elements. Really cool for if you're a landscape photographer or like to take photos on vacation. It allows you to customize those boring skies that you get when you're out traveling. You don't always get that nice blue sky. And so sometimes, that gray sky can be jazzed up a little bit using some of these fun brush elements. And in fact, I just published a tutorial by one of my team members today on my blog, which actually shows you how to jazz up a sky using different elements.
Yeah, so if our team can link up Anna's website, please, so everyone can click it. It's recently been redesigned, actually, and it's looking very stunning, Anna.
Yeah, and then like I said, these are delivered in PNG and ABR format. And if you're not familiar with the ABR format, I have like a complete class on loading and using brushes in the store at Anna Aspnes Designs, and it's completely free. And then I also have this multi-layered photo blends collection. And so there are 5 different masks. They coordinate with the pieces in the Art Play palette Anaphora collection. And these, of course, are delivered in both PNG and then that layered PSD format, which allows you then to customize those supporting layers to the primary photo mask layer.
So yeah, definitely consider grabbing this collection. Again, you can get it via the shiny green button below this live stream. It's well worth it. It's so much fun to play with. Yeah. And also, if the team could link up Anna's store at Design Cuts, there's hundreds more fantastic.
Yeah, we just loaded a whole bunch of new products in there, so that's really cool.
It's exciting. Yeah, there's loads of
people popping up saying they're ready. Liz saying pretty cool. Can't wait to create something. Yeah, me too, Liz. I want to play.
Yeah, Art Play is so much fun, Anna. You've really opened my eyes to it, and thank you for being such a great teacher as ever.
Oh gosh, yeah. I'm sorry I was a little bit fast at the beginning. I always have so much packed into these things that I want to make sure I get through it, and I'm excited about sharing this stuff. I mean, let's be honest, that's really and so I just talk quickly when I'm passionate about something.
You did so fantastically to fit so much in. Just because of time, have you got 5 minutes? I know we're
I'm available. It's my fault that I don't think it's my fault, but I'll take
it's not your fault at all. Do you mind with the questions? I'd love to try and get through them. Could we maybe do quick fire or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you tend to erase rather than make a mask? Maureen asks.
Yes, I do. I love the eraser tool. Now, if I was a professional designer doing client work, then I would use a layer mask and brushes. But because I'm a scrapbooker and it doesn't really matter and I can just delete the layer, then I tend to use the eraser tool because it's faster and it's easier and it speeds up my process. The only caveat to that is if I'm working on a really complex mask of my own, if I'm custom masking something, then I'm likely to use a layer mask and brushes because there's going to be a lot of back and forth. But for those easy kind of, I call them fast and dirty edits, like I just showed you with that hard edge, then I don't see there is anything wrong with using the eraser tool. Yeah,
amazing. And Shu says, do you have a trick for removing the background of watercolor graphics nicely and quickly, but still keeping the authentic watercolor edges?
There are lots of different ways to do this. And in fact, it was funny. I was just watching a tutorial yesterday that popped up in my inbox, and she was using the magic eraser tool, which I thought was interesting. It's not something that I typically do. I don't erase backgrounds from watercolors. But I mean, it seemed to work just fine. I would probably use the refine edge tool in Photoshop. If it was me, just because I think that you have the ability to apply that mask there. And so you can go back and forth and add areas back in as you need to.
Perfect. We had several people asking about a replay of this session, and it will be available on the Design Cuts YouTube as well as our Learn section at designcuts.com very, very soon. So you can go back and pause it and go through it at your own pace and rewatch as much as you want. And of course, that's completely free. Anna, we've also had a couple of requests saying, will you please come back and do more of these at Design Cuts? And I'd like to.
I'd love to.
It's been brilliant.
I'd love to. I love teaching live. It's just so awesome to share this stuff with everybody. And as you can tell, I'm super passionate about it. So yeah, I'm always happy to show people, how to do it.
Yay. Thank you.
Perfect.
Well, a huge thank you from
ever so
the
much,
whole
Anna.
Team here. There's two of us, so this won't look as weird as when I do it by myself. But let's give it up for Anna, everyone in the comments.
Thanks, Anna.
Show some love for Anna.
That's awesome.
But, that was so great. And we've seen,
really
obviously you haven't seen the comments while you were screen sharing, but just hundreds of comments of everyone loving what you've been sharing.
Positive. So many people saying thank you. And you're very talented. And
thank you. And if there are any other questions, then please don't hesitate to email me. I'm pretty easy to find. There aren't many Anna Aspnes's around, so you can find me fairly easily, and I'm always happy to answer any questions that you have.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Anna.
Incredible. And just on a quick final note, if you're looking out for more of these sessions, then do look for the little Design Cuts logo in this Crowdcast window, and you should be able to subscribe, and that way you actually get notified when we go live in future. But it is this time, same time every single week on a Thursday. We will get together and hang out with amazing guests like Anna. And Anna, we'll definitely have you back.
Yeah, learn lots of new stuff.
Yes, lots of new stuff.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you,
everyone, for joining us.
Take care, everyone.
We'll see you this time next week. And Anna, we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.